It's late afternoon on the 1st of October 1949 in Beijing, China. Although few around the globe are yet to understand it, this is a moment that will go down in history as one that changed the world. The son of a peasant farmer is about to announce to the planet that its most populous nation now has a people's government to be run by the Communist Party of China. A century and a half earlier, Emperor Napoleon Bonaparte of France had suggested letting the Chinese giant sleep, because when it awoke, the world would tremble. Today, Mao Zedong's historic words from Tiananmen Tower will be a sign that Napoleon's giant is stirring. 60 years on, and the world is under no illusions about China's sleeping habits. Parades like this one in 1984 established China's military might and organization in spectacular fashion. In 1949 too, there is to be a parade following the founding announcement. The parade is in itself an important statement, but there is no guarantee of how it will go. It'll be the first of its kind, and the participants have to overcome a number of tricky obstacles to mount it successfully. This is the story of how they did it, and how, for a documentary crew digging into the Chinese archives to piece together the story, it'll provide moments of extraordinary revelation.
Well, I can say 99.9% of Chinese people never see this last bit of his speech.
Yes, I just heard it, and I can't believe it. Yeah.
这是很危险的事啊，这个我有这么一个打算。
这种盛况，那只能是那一天。
It's June 2009 at the Olympic Sports Center in Beijing. Housed in the gymnasium building are the offices of one of China's large media groups. Australian documentary filmmaker Peter Duquesne is here to reconstruct a definitive account of the story behind Mao's 1949 parade.
As a historian, I was fascinated by how Mao and his people managed to mount this event. It was really an amazing propaganda coup, since they were actually still busy fighting the Civil War.
As Mao Zedong and his fellow communist revolutionaries soak in the atmosphere and adulation of the crowd, they have every reason to look and feel elated. For this represents the climactic moment in a titanic struggle for control of China that has been going on ever since the abdication in 1912 of Pu Yi, the last emperor of the Qing dynasty. The intervening period has seen a veritable galaxy of armed factions jostling for power throughout China. The invasion by the Japanese in the 1930s has united many of these diverse groups. And by the time Japan surrenders in August of 1945, there are only two main contenders left slugging it out for the great prize of governing China. The favorite would appear to be Chiang Kai-shek, leading the Kuomintang Nationalist Government, or KMT, with their capital in the southern city of Nanjing. But in the other corner is one of the great figures of world history, Mao Zedong, and his totally dedicated and idealistically motivated Communist Party of China. Mao has the backing of the Soviet Union and Chiang the support of the Americans. At times, the two have united to repel the Japanese. But by 1948, they are locked together in a bloody endgame that can see only one winner. By the end of January 1949, Mao's communist forces are gaining the upper hand. When a KMT general surrenders Beijing, then known as Beiping, without a fight, the signs are not looking good for Chiang. It's the symbolic seat of imperial power, and on the 3rd of February, Mao's People's Liberation Army, or PLA, enters the city. Buoyed by the news, Mao holds a conference in nearby Shibaipo to plan a push for final victory that will now concentrate on the major cities. Over the next few months, the idea for a grand victory parade will emerge. Along with the parade, it is decided to make some other symbolic changes. To define themselves as different from the perceived corruption of the previous KMT regime, they'll change the name of the country itself, switch the nation's capital back to Beiping, and rename it Beijing. They'll also create a new national flag and anthem and adopt the Christian calendar. The details will be worked out at a conference in June prior to holding the big event. Shortly afterwards, Mao arrives in Beijing and famously tells Zhou Enlai that they are now about to sit the imperial exam. He moves into a house in the mountains just to the north of Beijing to ponder the future and start preparations for the day he'll announce a new regime that the whole world will be forced to accept. In the editing rooms, Peter is now starting to pull together the research and archive elements he needs for his film.
Initially, the existing archive was a bit of an unknown quantity. I even found some strange footage that I was sure had been colorized from black and white. But I did find that over the years a number of interviews with eyewitnesses had been filmed, especially with participants in the parade itself, which was ideal.
One of the first to start preparations for the parade is Li Bude from the 199th Division of the North China Military Area Command. In July 1949, he receives an urgent order from Central Command.
跟我们讲啊，因为我要完成这个阅兵的任务啊，这个阅兵的任务啊， 非常重要。过庆典嘛，组织这个召开万人大会，组织几十万人的游行，对不对？搞阅兵庆典放阅晚会，这个阅兵啊非常重要。我们呐一定要坚决完成上面给我们的这个任务，不怕苦，不怕累，不怕流汗，用战斗的精神来完成这个任务。
The 199th is an experienced army unit that has distinguished itself in both the war against the Japanese and the civil war with Chiang Kai-shek's Kuomintang forces. They're particularly excited because they'll be the only infantry unit to be inspected and will see Mao Zedong himself.
大家那情绪高头，那见毛主席不容易啊，对不对？我们天安门呐，毛主席检阅我们见毛主席，这是多么好的机会啊！
For Peter, the soldiers' excitement at the possibility of seeing Mao is understandable. He knows that Mao and his supporters have been carefully nurturing the cult of personality and the aura around Mao for some time. But there's something that's bothering him.
Right from the start, all the archive records and films I was being given featured the same bit of footage of Mao announcing the establishment of the new government. In fact, I'd used it myself in 2 other films. But I'm thinking to myself, hang on a minute, Mao's a great communicator. He's got a huge and wildly enthusiastic crowd in front of him, and he's trying to send a major message to the Chinese people and the outside world. Surely he would have said more than just one sentence. But after a bit of digging, sure enough, I find the text of what turns out to be another 613 words when translated into English. Great, I thought, so there must be footage of this, and asked my Chinese researchers to try and track it down.
As his team starts searching for the extra Mao archive, Peter returns to the story of the preparations for the great event. Today, the Chinese PLA is world famous for its precision drilling and spectacular parade skills. But it's a tradition that had yet to be developed by 1949. During the war years, the People's Liberation Army, or PLA, had held some minor reviews and parades. But these events pale in comparison to the scale of the parade envisaged for the founding ceremony of the new republic. The initial plan for the 1949 event consists of 3 parts: a founding ceremony of the Central People's Government, a grand parade of the army, and some parade activities of the general population. Exactly how to conduct the parade becomes the central issue. Mao articulates what's at stake, declaring, "Because it is the first parade after the founding of the state, we must make it a success." The first question is, where to hold the event? The area around the old imperial palace, or Forbidden City, is the obvious choice. Although in a state of disrepair following the fall of the Qing dynasty and the war with Japan, for centuries it has represented the center of power in China. The monumental gate barring access to the Forbidden City is known as Tiananmen Tower, or the Gate of Heavenly Peace. The structure had been used for important proclamations such as imperial enthronements or marriages, and provides the ideal venue to symbolize the advent of a new era. The Chinese organizers have arranged for Peter to visit the famous landmark for himself. For Chinese from every corner of the vast country, it's a kind of sacred site, and thousands flock to see it every day.
This is the place where it all happened on October the 1st, 1949. And this picture of Mao has been replaced in the 70s, not the original photograph.
Accompanying Peter is Mr. Chu, a man that will have a major role in helping him reconstruct the story.
I soon realized that Mr. Chu was not just any old guide explaining the history to a tourist. In fact, he turns out to be one of the experts on the history of all the grand parades held here since 1949.
Mr. Chu explains to Peter that today's Tiananmen Square is significantly different than 60 years ago, when it was a much smaller area. This is Meng Jiaorui, a photographer just shy of his 80th birthday. On this very day and spot, in late September 1949, he was taking photos near the Tiananmen Tower. The people are clearing weeds, preparing the area for the founding event. Then a 19-year-old reporter for a military publication, Meng has been observing the dramatic changes taking place following the fall of Beijing to the communists, and knows that this place is soon to be the central stage of a key moment in China's history.
好像每一天都是在幸福当中，都是非常新鲜的人，都没见过，哪儿见过啊？是吧？就是这个，一个是新闻事件非常大，一个是都很激动人心。
But before Mao's grand parade idea can be realized, there is a lot of work to be done, and only 3 months to get it organized. It's soon clear that the alignment and formation of the 199th Infantry Square will be critically important. Whilst the unit was busy fighting the war, formal drills were rarely conducted. Now, for many of the soldiers, such training is more difficult than actual combat. And it's summer in northern China, with scorching hot temperatures.
训练了一天8个小时，上午4个，下午4个。就这个训练困难，不如打仗了。打仗它就是一方面单从啊。 训练了，他这课没多，一整这课就是课。
How they will look on parade is also important, and most of their equipment and weapons have been captured and are of varying models.
我们自己还不会操枪呢，我们自己只会操个手榴弹，不会操枪，都是教的敌人的。那最好的步枪是日本的3把大杆。
To standardize their weapons, all Type 38 rifles seized by other units are immediately reallocated to the 199th Division. And there are other, less obvious problems to address.
我们呢都养成了吧，这个早晨起床大小便，阅兵的时候，这就没有事儿了嘛，对不对？ 这个养成啊不容易，这是个生活习惯呐，这是个生理习惯，是不是？但是我们都做到了。
Training people to control their bodily functions is one thing, but for the cavalry unit, that's not an option. There are nearly 2,000 horses, and as they parade, they'll leave an ever-growing collection of droppings. And the parade ground will also be slippery.
一地它就是滑呀，滑就那个有的前后啊就不一样的，是不是？一滑呀，哎，地是长的，它不滑了，哎，就是整了2件事，一个定掌，一个是搞那个布兜子在后边，哎，大便拉不到，钱都没钱。
Tank Gongchen was the very first tank captured by the PLA and has participated in a number of campaigns, acting as vanguard in large-scale assaults on heavily fortified positions. For its outstanding service, it is given the name of Gongchen, or Meritorious Service Tank. Now it will take pride of place in the Combat Car Division's Tank Square. Dong Lai-fu is Gongchen's driver, and he's also got a problem. If he's level with another tank, he can't actually see it.
你要想看着那个坦克，你就得超出了它。这个坦克这样吧，我这样吧。你要想看它，你得这样才能看它。看它你就突出了，就本身你就不齐。
He solves the problem by realigning the tank's periscope viewer.
从底下往外看呢，把镜子伸出去，你在下边一看，出去了。你把它放到侧看，就看那个坦克了，而且和你一边平。
Dong's innovation allows him to see the adjacent tank and keep track of their relative alignment. As the edit progresses, Peter takes a couple of days off to conduct a workshop with Chinese documentary makers in Shenyang in Manchuria. Talking to them afterwards, he mentions his hunt for extra footage of Mao's speech on the 1st of October 1949. The next day, they give him an unexpected gift.
It was an old and moth-eaten looking VCD, but on the cover I could clearly read the magic words, live recording of founding ceremony of China. Bingo, I thought. This might just have what I'm looking for, or at least the audio of Mao's speech, if not the footage as well. When I got a chance to look, it was actually quite nerve-wracking, as there was a lot of music and narration leading up to Mao's announcement. And it stopped almost immediately. Oh no, I was thinking. But just when I was beginning to get really worried, he started up again. I knew the sound of his known proclamation, so almost immediately I realized that this sound was new, and also the pictures. Sounds different. It is different. Great.
The following day, Peter's back in Beijing, and the team starts to work on the new footage. But there's a problem. Some of the audio quality is extremely poor, and translator Keran is struggling.
Well, it's very difficult to understand what he says. So
Why is that?
I think it is because he comes from Hunan province. It's different, very different from the Mandarin, you know. And actually, I comes from south part of China, but I cannot get his words. Very, very hard. Yeah. Maybe we should find another guy who can understand, who come from Hunan province and could understand what he said. But I don't think we have the people in our company who speaks Hunan province, Hunan dialect. Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Peter starts the search for a translator from Hunan province to help out. But then, unexpectedly, Mr. Chu arrives at the edit room with a priceless present. He's got a section of Mao's speech with much better sound quality and also some footage which may match it.
For me, this was really exciting. Working with Mr. Chu's help, our editor got to work straight away to sync up the material. There were a few distinctive moments in Mao's delivery that might help. And after only about 10 minutes or so, we got our breakthrough. Straight away, it was obvious that the footage was indeed in sync. This was great, but we still didn't know what Mao was saying.
Even most of Hunan people won't understand that.
So what you're telling me is that the leader of the new communist China is making a speech that nobody really can understand.
Yes, true.
How incredible.
Yes, I just heard it, and I can't believe it. Yeah.
I guess it was about this point that the true enormity of the situation struck me. If these people couldn't understand what Mao was saying, then of course it followed that the vast majority of the crowd listening on that historic day wouldn't be understanding him either. To me, this was just mind-boggling. After all, can you imagine Barack Obama electioneering to the American people in Swahili, or the great orators of history like Kennedy, Martin Luther King, Hitler, Churchill, etc., swaying their people in a language that almost none of them could understand? Quite unbelievable, but nevertheless true. Now I was really hooked by this whole thing, and actually became kind of obsessed with reconstructing and translating as much of Mao's speech on that day as I could.
Mao's vision for the Grand Parade is to achieve something that is, in reality, largely symbolic. In effect, he'll be telling the Chinese people and the outside world that the game is over, that he has won and there's no point in further conflict. To make this work, he must show that he's totally in control, and he has two areas that are of concern. He has almost no Navy or Air Force to speak of, so what he does have must be presented to appear more substantial than it really is. With the Navy, he has one prize asset. From 1944, Li Guanying had been studying at the Britannia Royal Naval College in Dartmouth, England. In May 1948, he and other Marines of the Kuomintang Navy studying overseas sailed the cruiser Chongqing back to China. In February 1949, Li and more than 600 officers and soldiers take over the ship and delivered the largest cruiser of the Kuomintang Navy into communist hands. To highlight the Navy, Li is chosen as the flag bearer of the very first square of troops to be inspected at the upcoming founding ceremony.
新年那个时候，全国没解放，解放军也没有个正式的步兵操典，说怎么办呢？请示了首长以后，首长就这样说：“你们还是照英国学习那个操典练习。”结果我们就照英国的那个操典嘛练习，由我负责训练。
The Air Force situation is more problematic. Actually, there's a real possibility of an aerial attack on the proposed event.
北平的国民党蒋介石安排的一些特务什么的，他并没死心，他也进行了破坏。另外，国民党的飞机也到了咱们这个郊区轰炸。
As recently as May that year, Kuomintang planes had launched a surprise attack on a Beijing airport.
他不是高空来的，那个时候我们什么都没有啊，在里头修好的发动机，修得好的机件，还有几架小飞机搞好的都炸掉了，哎，伤亡了40多个人。
The air raid by the Kuomintang Air Force unsettles the population of Beijing. In response, the central leadership decides to organize an air combat unit to protect the city. By August, the PLA's first air squadron is established. Initially, this Air Force unit is not ordered to participate in the founding ceremony. The condition of the squadron is very poor, and there are only a few planes that are airworthy. So instead, their brief is to prevent any attack by the Kuomintang Air Force and to ensure the safety of the ceremony. But then, one day in late August, Ni Rongzhen, General Director of the parade, unexpectedly questions Air Force representatives present at a working conference of the founding ceremony.
你们能不能给组织一个飞行队啊？通过天安门接受毛主席、朱总司令和新中国领导人的检阅啊。
The participation of an air force would undoubtedly make the parade more spectacular, but getting it organized is another matter. There is only one combat unit available, and it has barely been formed. To make matters worse, the founding ceremony is only 1 month away. Back at the edit, there's been a development.
As it happened, the company did have one translator from Hunan province, and to my amazement and delight, it turned out to be none other than Xu Ye, or Donald to me, who had worked with me on my very first series in China.
The audio quality and dialect turns out to be a problem even for a man from Mao's own province.
So how are you doing with that?
It's really hard. Not really easy to hear it.
So even with the match, even with the script, it's hard to pick which bit is which.
Well, I can really, I can guess which part it is, but to tell exact words is really hard.
Mm. So, but you're the man from Hunan, right?
Yeah, right. The dialects in the southern part of China is really, it differs a lot. Even, my place is only about 100 kilometers from what he comes from, you see. And the language that we speak is totally different. I can't, even when I was there, I can't really understand those dialects.
Mm. But you've got a better idea than the other people here, right?
Anyway, it's from the same province, so some of the way of speaking and the words that they use could be the same, but only the pronunciation is really different from the others.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so do you think you're going to be able to match it up for us?
I'll do my best to see, but I can't give you any promise.
Okay, fair enough.
A week before the scheduled date for the Grand Parade, a major conference is held with representatives attending from all over China. They'll elect the new government members and also vote on the new national flag and anthem. During the meeting, planes are suddenly heard overhead. Mindful of the air raid in May, many of the representatives are scared. Conference chairman Zhou Enlai advises them not to panic.
他说：“是我们解放军自己的飞机，他们来保卫我们的大会，他们还要参加建设新中国的庆祝大会。”哦，大家就鼓掌，高兴得很。说有我们自己的飞机了。
After emergency repairs and trial flights, only 17 planes are considered suitable for the flyover. And there's another issue. The primary task of the air squadron is to protect Beijing from aerial attack. But they're planning to use all the planes available to participate in the formation flight. Fang Hui now proposes a bold but risky idea to the general director of the parade, Reintroduced.
我就给他说了，简单的说了一下，我想我准备2架在下面带弹的，还搞2架在空中带弹的。 这是很危险的事啊！这是，我有这么一个打算。
Reintroduced finally approves Fang Hui's suggestion and in fact decides to arm several planes in case of an air raid.
这是个政治飞行，是这么的这，不是一般的，要出了事故啊，他还点到我。 你这个小家伙你吃不了。
It remains, however, a top secret operation. Only the pilots with armed planes will know, and even other squadron members are kept in the dark. Finally, the great day arrives. On the morning of October the 1st, Meng Jiaorui, the reporter who will be taking photographs of the ceremony, is in front of Tiananmen Tower before dawn. He's got 3 cameras with him to minimize the risk of missing key moments.
那阵的摄影器材都是一般的，不像现在数码。你看数码现在1秒钟照10张，这你说怎么也得照好吧？那阵儿，你要照一定的艰难的、这困难的那个地方，你还得用闪光灯。 闪光灯又不是万次的，又不是这个，原来都是一个灯泡一次，一照一个就完。
The troops to be inspected have gathered outside the entrance gate in a long queue. Some have even arrived at the designated location the previous evening. And now a huge crowd of excited onlookers starts to assemble in Tiananmen Square. At the edit, Donald has finally completed his work on Mao's speech.
Everybody in China, I can say 99.9% of Chinese people never see this last bit of his speech. What we actually heard is just he is saying that this country and the central government is established. Only the first sentence, nothing else. Well, this is really fabulous and valuable, really valuable. I guess nobody actually, well, even this is for quite particular for every Chinese people. You know, they've never seen this before.
You could be the first person to match the whole of it up.
Yeah.
Donald starts painstakingly identifying the audio and generating the English subtitles to match the words. Bit by bit, it comes together. And finally, Donald confirms that yes, here it is. Mao's message to the world from that day and in sync.
Well, I can't be 100% sure, of course. But if what my Chinese friends are telling me really is true, this will be a real contribution to the historical record. And if so, all the effort involved will have really paid off as far as I'm concerned.
So Peter can now reconstruct the momentous event and possibly for the first time ever reveal the substance of the missing Mao's speech with audio synced to picture. This is the one sentence that the world is familiar with. But Mao has more to say. Firstly, a message to the Chinese people. Although few can understand him, the crowd reacts to some key words and the timing of Mao's delivery. After effectively claiming victory for the benefit of his domestic audience, Mao's final statement is directed to the outside world. At 4 p.m., just after Mao has declared the establishment of the People's Republic of China to the world, Commander-in-Chief Zhu De and General Director of the parade Ni Rongjian arrive to inspect the troops, who are ready to proceed into Tiananmen Square. The inspection ceremony is followed by the march-past procession. The Navy Square appears first. Some of them are really army soldiers wearing Navy uniforms to bolster the numbers. Others, the officers and soldiers who staged the Chongqing mutiny. Li Guanying has the ultimate honor. He'll carry the flag. Unfortunately for Li, as he lowers the flag 45 degrees in salute, a gust of wind rolls it around the pole. It's to be the only slight glitch of the day. Now it's the infantry's turn. It takes only a few short minutes to walk down the 350-meter road in front of Tiananmen Tower. But to arrive at this fleeting moment, these men have shed blood, sweat and tears, both in battle and now in preparing for this parade. It's a moving moment for Mao Zedong and the other leaders of the new China. Commissar Li Buda of the 199th Division is marching at the front of the square.
那是最高兴的，请毛主席检阅我们，那最有劲儿了，也是最紧张的了，对不对？那心情你们可以理解的，是不是？那用不着说，我们那过了天了，那都是。
To see Chairman Mao, even Gong Laifu, the driver of the meritorious tank Gongshen, is compelled to sneak a sideways peek at the tower, although he is driving the tank square's leading vehicle, requiring total concentration.
把方向标好了，看了也赶快回来啊！也赶着告诉自己不能多看呐，就这么看。
As soon as the combat car unit has rolled past, the planes start to appear. As they fly past, some observers count them and determine that there are 26 in the formation. But there are really only 17 as originally planned. In fact, the 9 fighters that passed first secretly circle behind Tiananmen.
到东直门那边就转过来，正好又接到我们的后头通过的，就多了9架飞机。
The 9 fighters join the inspection formation again. But none of the foreign reporters present realize how they have been deceived. In the communiques they send afterwards, they report that overnight the Communist Party of China appears to have its own air force of at least 26 planes. In all, more than 200,000 civilians gather on Tiananmen Square to witness the founding ceremony, avidly analyzing the various forces and weapons on display. Meng Jiaorui uses almost all his rolls of film.
每一个镜头都很精彩，都是历史的瞬间，都是说老实话凝固着历史，是永恒的，的确是。当时我认为就是很重要的，但是回过头来看，这个开国大典，这种盛况，那只能是那一天。
With the civil war just ending, the new People's Republic of China has no diplomatic relations with Western countries. As a result, only Soviet Russian reporters are invited to take photos and film at the momentous event. For Peter, the story of the Russian cameraman is intriguing. At Tiananmen Tower, Mr. Chu explained what happened.
For the founding day, the former USSR, is it USSR?
Yes.
Oh, yes, okay. Sent a filming crew in China, and they will stay in Beijing hotel.
Okay.
By no reasons, actually nobody knows what is the reason. They burned up the filming
The film.
by accident, but nobody really knows the story.
For me, the mysterious fire and the loss of the Soviet footage of the event answered some of my questions about the strange state of the archive footage, but still left me wondering what might be found in the Russian archive if I had the chance to investigate it. Perhaps there is even some original color footage of the day. rather than just the colorized material I'd seen. But that'd have to wait for another time.
So the fledgling republic had achieved its first major propaganda coup without serious mishap. The marching troops had kept their formations, their weapons looked uniform, the tanks hadn't collided, and nobody was stepping on horse droppings. And the Air Force had miraculously increased in size. Onlookers were suitably impressed by the spectacle. It's all been an elaborate bit of theatre, but they've pulled it off. At the end of the day, Mao's face says it all.